Okay, everybody, we are back for a brand new an all new brand new episode of For Whom the Bell Tolls. I've lost count on how many we've done. I think this is episode 16 or 17. I want to thank anybody who's here with us in the chat tonight. You guys are the life of the conversation for sure. I want to thank everybody who's watching us on replay. If you are watching on replay, I've said it before, you know what to do. Hashtag Team Replay down in the comments. It lets me know where you're watching it from. It lets me know kind of different time zones when I plan out future videos. And yes, to my European and Asian friends, I already have a video set up for mid-September in your time zone, so it's going to be terrific. Now, I want to introduce somebody that I've been watching his channel pretty religiously since I started. He's been at it a little bit longer than I have, but his content is just phenomenal. And I think other booktubers are catching on to this because it's weird in these booktube circles. You hear certain names pop in and pop up, quite often. And the last few months, I keep hearing Tom Orange, Tom Orange, Tom Orange, and I thought, God, I was the only guy that knew about Tom Orange, but no, Tom is getting pretty popular. Welcome to the Bell Tower, Mr. Tom Orange. Please let everybody know how you're doing tonight.
I'm doing great and very happy to be here. I am normally somebody who is a Team Replay.
Okay.
Team Replay.
Yeah.
I try to catch as much stuff live as I can, but a lot of times I miss it live. So it's nice to be here for sure, in person as much as it is, and live with everybody. So very excited to be here.
Absolutely. And I watched you on, I think you were on Fantasy Awash, maybe on the Love Bomb show. Yes. And yeah, what a great episode of Love Bomb that was. If you guys are unaware, Laura over at Fantasy Awash also had Tom on, and it's a great conversation. You should definitely check it out. By the way, of course, Tom's channel information, if you're not subscribed to his channel, is in the description of this video. Absolutely go subscribe to Tom. You're going to learn a lot about him tonight, but nothing is really as good as watching the actual booktuber do their thing on their channel. So if you're not subscribed to Tom, absolutely go ahead and do that. I'm going to throw some comments up here, and then we're going to get into, like you guys know, I do come prepared. Whether we get to any of these or not, you guys, it's BellTube. You already know what you're in for here. I bring the nonsense. All right, all the way from Croatia, our buddy Stepan. By the way, Stepan, I will teach Mike how to pronounce your name correctly. Doug is here. Howdy, folks. My Lit RPG Sherpa. Doug is here. Folks, if you think I know anything about Lit RPG, take a look in the comments sometime about what Doug puts in there. It's unbelievable. My good friend and Illuminati member, Dr. Philip Chase, the best of fantasy. Two gentlemen I look forward to listening to. Thank you. Our friend Britton is here, some Okie dude from Oklahoma, says, hello, friends. And I'm saying these out loud mostly because I know a lot of the times on replay, people are listening rather than watching, so I don't want our listeners to have no idea what I'm talking about. Slay, all the way from the other side of the world, says, hello, everyone. One of our great patrons here at the channel. By the way, the patron is also listed in the description. Tyson, I'm finally making it live from Winnipeg, Canada. Good to have you here, Tyson. Uh-oh, my brother from the South, Mr. John Menton is here, folks. He says, introduce. Okay, we'll do that. The best mustache on BookTube. He's got one of them. Now, I was called to task the other day. By Senior Jimmy Nuts, the best mustache on BookTube. And he said, Mark from Slowly Read. It had been a hot minute since I'd seen Mark. I have to admit, Jimmy Nuts was right. But I will say, Tom has the best active channel mustache going on in BookTube. Most deaf on the stash from John. Heidi, another great patron, says, hello, Brian and Tom. I am not familiar with Mr. Orange. Well, you're going to be tonight, Heidi. And we're going to get into his fantasy books. Another patron. God, you patrons are awesome. Elaine is here. Long live the Quilluminati. You know that to be true. Drew says, hello, everyone. All right, let's get into some conversational stuff. Part of the beauty of this show for me is not just talking about books. Yeah, I know that's the thing that I have in common with my guests, and I know it's the thing that I have in common with all of you guys that are watching, But For Whom the Bell Tolls is really all about trying to dig a little bit deeper into the personality and into the human being behind these booktube channels. And so maybe, Tom, if we can just get started, we're going to talk plenty about books tonight. You recently told me just the other day that you are a DevOps professional. And I'm going to be willing to bet that a lot of people that are watching this channel, A, had no idea what you did for, normal job, and B, have any idea what a DevOps does. Could you tell us what that is? I think it'll help people understand, who you are a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And so one of the funny things about DevOps is it's a very broad term that means a lot of things at a lot of different places. So the best structure for it is normally is it's somebody who is probably cloud focused, focusing on infrastructure as code. For me, it is specifically, I'm more on like a application performance monitoring side. So I really care about making sure applications are running smoothly. When there is an issue, I'm kind of one of the people who is diving in and figuring out what is going wrong and how can we fix it. It's one of those professions where, like I said, it means a lot of different things. So
Sure.
for me, that's what it is. For other people, it will definitely be like spinning up servers in the cloud, a lot of cloud stuff, a lot of cloud
Okay.
jargon. Containers is another very popular technology, all kinds of stuff. But for me, it is making sure our customers are happy with our applications.
I love it. And of course, Dr. Fantasy says, speaking of somebody who knows a lot of foreign languages, why is Tom speaking foreign languages now? Because Tom is a tech guy.
Yes.
Dr. Chase is not exactly a tech guy. And John, of course, says DevOps is what I say when I stub my toe real bad. But I think that that's interesting because you know, and we'll talk about this a little bit tonight too. I know that you've participated in a strongman competition. You clearly are a gym person who takes physical fitness seriously. I think a lot of us have this image of a guy who works on apps in the clouds, in software technology, is maybe not the guy that's competing in strongman competitions. So
Yeah.
I love how you absolutely blow that whole stereotype completely right out of the water, that somebody that could be just as physically fit, capable, energetic, and competitive as you is also totally brilliant when it comes to software applications and technology. And I think it's very cool.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely sometimes when my worlds collide, it's a little interesting to see how that happens because I have my gym friends,
Yeah.
and it is actually funny. I do have some who are also like in technology and stuff, but sometimes when the books and the gym, those are the ones that clash a lot more. I'll talk to some of my gym friends, and they'll tell me I haven't read a book since high school, and that when they were forced to read a book, and
Yeah.
then I tell them, I'm on pace to read like 60 books this year. So, about
Yeah.
one a week. They just cannot believe it. It's out of this world for them.
So let's talk about that for a second, because I think that that's really common, that a lot of people get turned off to reading when they're kids because they're forced to read books they don't want to read. Do
Yes.
you recall, like, when you were a kid, like maybe a book that maybe was sort of like put on you that you needed to read that might have turned you off a little bit versus something that maybe either you were put onto or decided to read on your own that made you think otherwise and that you actually like reading?
Yeah. So reading for me, actually, we probably have to start a little bit earlier. So I have dyslexia. And
Okay.
so growing up, reading and writing and all of that was very difficult for me. I can remember, being pulled out of classes for it, to get extra learning. I can remember uh, my parents trying to find like after school education to like help with that kind of stuff.
Sure.
I mean, it was bad enough when I was in elementary school that I forget which like after school education thing it was, but they told my parents that they should take out a second mortgage to pay for me to go there, or I would never graduate high school.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
not what happened,
Right.
but
Yeah.
that's kind of like
But
the level
somebody
I
had put
was.
that thought in, right, in
Right,
your mind
exactly.
and in their mind.
Of course, yeah. So reading was very difficult. And when I finally got to the point where I was able to read at the level I was supposed to, I just kind of took to it. So
Okay.
I'm, if I had to pick one book from school that was like the one I didn't enjoy the most would probably be The Great Gatsby.
Okay.
Is like the one, but even then I was like, it was fine. It just,
Yeah.
so I never really had, I know that's a very common thing with a lot of people, that the reading in school is what
Right.
killed it for them. But for me, it was just like an opportunity to do it. And so I
Right.
always kind of looked forward to it.
Yeah, there must have been just a sense of joy, I would imagine,
Yeah.
having had such struggles to do it. And then all
Yep.
of a sudden, your brain clicks in with whatever methodology they used or just the practice of it.
Yep.
And then it becomes something fun all of a sudden, where
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would have not read. They would have just been kind of either bummed out or disappointed or frustrated or
Yeah.
whatever. Do you think, like, in a way, that that was one of your first challenges that you really wanted to overcome and made it a point to get good at, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny because you don't think that you really have that in you when you're a kid, but
Yeah.
obviously when I heard that, it was enough. As I was probably in fourth grade at that time, maybe, but to want to stick it to somebody even at fourth grade, I think it did kind of light a fire under me to like want to do it and like push and challenge myself to kind of prove people wrong, because in a
Absolutely.
way it felt like they were saying I was stupid, and I never felt like that. And
Right.
so to be on the
Right.
other side of that was something I kind of wanted to do for
I
sure.
think that I think that that's incredible, and certainly being in the fourth grade is very early in life to develop that attitude. I think a lot of people will wait till they're more in their kind of teenage years or their high school years or even later to say, "Don't tell me what I can't do. I'll figure out a way to do it." Um, you did that at like 9 or 10 years old,
Yeah.
which is incredible. And Philip is saying here, I love this. I have so much respect for people who work to overcome a disadvantage and turn it into an advantage. Well done, Tom. So this is a guy that, would know better than any of us,
Yeah.
really. He teaches it for a living.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. How, we're going to talk about some of the genres that you're into tonight, because, folks, I have to tell you, when it comes to fiction, I'm not sure that there's any booktuber that I've talked to yet that is more diverse in their genre reading than Mr. Tom Orange here. He covers kind of a lot of, and I know for our channel at BellTube, we do lots of fantasy and sci-fi and lit RPG and stuff like that. But Tom does all that stuff, but he also does, a little bit wider and certainly deeper into some of the wider areas that I don't get into. But in particular, regarding fantasy books, because again, that's what a lot of people come to this channel for. What drew you to fantasy books in the first place?
Yeah, I think I was like the perfect age for Harry Potter.
Okay.
And so I think I saw the first movie before anything. And I think, and then I had those books. And I think that was one of the first books that I like sat down and kind of really read by myself and got through it that way. And so I think it was kind of just like, it was such a part of pulp culture. Everybody's talking about Harry Potter's just
Yeah.
everywhere, everything. And I'm just kind of like the perfect age for it. So
Yeah.
that drew me, and then that just kind of leads you down the fantasy path, right?
Right.
That was like the first step into fantasy for sure.
Was Harry Potter. I
Yeah.
suppose you are at an age that would be kind of fairly common, I would
Yep.
imagine. Were there people in your school reading it as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was in school, I don't know if they still do this, but we basically had every time you read a book, you took a test and got points for the book.
Okay.
And so it was kind of like a competition to see
Sure.
who could read the most and do the best on the test and get the most amount of points. And Harry Potter was worth a lot of points. And so it was everybody was reading it to kind of do that. So it was a little bit of a competition going also.
To do it. No, so were the kids also sorting themselves into houses at the time?
No, I don't think it got that bad, but everybody, it was a big deal to win, I think it was like the top 5 got like prizes and stuff. And I remember, just seeing how much points they were worth too, and being like, I like this and I get all these points for it. So that was very early on stuff. For sure.
I can't decide if you're a Hufflepuff or a Gryffindor. To me, you're one of them for sure, but I don't know yet.
Anytime I've taken one of the tests, it is between those two. I normally end up leaning a little bit more towards Gryffindor, but
Yeah.
those are the two I normally get split between.
I'm going to do an episode on my channel where I sort all of my favorite booktubers into
Okay.
houses based on
Oh,
either
that'll be fun.
how well I know them or what I think that they're actually,
Oh, that's a
what
good
they
idea.
are. Then I'm going to probably have them tell me if I was right or wrong.
Yeah.
So we'll make a game show out of it.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is
It's good.
this is a good question from Stepan. Which book left the biggest impression on you?
Um, the biggest impression, it's hard for. Okay, so I'm gonna say Death's End, which is the last book in the Three Body Problem series.
Yep.
But it's really that trilogy as a whole. That
Sure.
that that trilogy, when I read it, I think I read it in like 2019. So that was
Mm-hmm.
right when I was getting back into reading after college as well. Uh, I think that series like has legitimately and fundamentally changed the way I like look at the universe and think about like life outside of just this planet
Mm-hmm.
and like society in of itself. It's a series I think about all the time, and it was just I'm actually afraid to reread it because it's built up so much in my head that I'm kind of
Sure.
like, do I even want to take a chance and and read
Yeah.
it? But that like if I had to, I'm gonna say Death's End, but really that trilogy as a whole.
Did you find that trilogy improved with each book, or did you like book?
Yes.
Okay, so it did.
Yeah.
So I've read Three Body Problem,
Hmm.
and I did it as part of my DNF challenge because Mike
Okay.
had DNF'd it, and that was the one that
Yes.
he had me read. I really was mixed on it. To the point that I think if I didn't have a booktube channel, I probably would have gone into the second book,
Hmm.
but I just don't know. I was like, I'm not like in love with it, but I don't hate it. But I can see why Mike flipped off of it because
Oh
he's
yeah.
a character guy
No
and
characters.
there's no characters in
There's
the
no.
book. I haven't
Yeah.
watched. Oh, I gotta say two things. Ithra Slytherin here, of course, Slytherin for life. We've been cheated out of every house cup by the very very biased Dumbledore. It's really a shame. And one of my IRL friends, Paresh, is here. Hello, old friend.
Oh,
Very cool. And
nice.
Alicia's here, Birdie in the books. Late, but made it. Awesome. So I don't even know what we were talking about. Somehow I got into my Dumbledore rant, but
The three body
we're
problem
talking
is
about the
yeah.
three body problem.
Yes.
So I didn't get into that book because, like I said, just because of the channels, it was like, I don't know if I really want to risk it. But if I'm hearing you correctly, it's worth adding into my TBR because I do
So
appreciate sci-fi and I'm not just a
yeah.
characters guy. Some of my favorite books are classic sci-fi that have no characters at all.
Yeah, so I have read that author outside of just the three body problem, which I feel like probably a lot of people have not done, and that's how all his books are. It's all idea based.
Yeah.
It's the characters do not matter. I read one of his books. I not that probably within the past month or two. I could not 2 minutes after that book was over. I could not tell you a name of a
A name of
character,
them. Yeah.
but every character represented either an idea or kind of like a stereotypical idea of a culture that he was trying to kind of represent. And so his writing just works with me on a way
Sure.
that a lot of ones don't. With the three body in particular, I do think the first one is the weakest. Most people think the second one is
Okay.
the best. I think I'm in a smaller camp who thinks the third book is the best because that book gets out there.
It's just
It is out there, far out, and you really got to kind of just accept it and not because it's so far out. Just the time span things go on are it's unlike anything else I've read.
So how did you come across the three body problem in the first place?
So there is a podcast. So was it a podcast or just somebody I used to watch on YouTube? Not even related to like the book space. Have you ever seen the channel? It's an old school YouTube channel, Epic Mealtime.
I don't think so,
Okay.
but it's possible that I've seen it and I'm just not remembering the name.
So Epic, it was basically a channel where they just made these ridiculous meals and kind of got drunk and ate these ridiculous meals with like huge
Okay.
calorie. Very early YouTube kind of stuff, but one of the hosts on there, I can't remember if it was an Ask Me Anything or anything, but he talked about this series and how impactful it was on him. And I was like, oh, I'll at least look into it. And then I read the first book and just kind of kept going after that. So very, very strange way to find that book.
Absolutely. Ithra's got a question here. Should she read it before watching the TV show, in your opinion?
I have not watched the TV show. I'm afraid to watch the TV show.
Just because you've got it pretty high
So
up on your, in
it's
your
one of those
list of things.
it's kind of just one of those things where I know they have kind of changed the timeline some of the things happen on,
Okay.
and I'm not sure if I'll enjoy it the same way. Also, I just don't watch a whole lot of TV in general. It's kind of one of the things I just don't do as much. I if I'm either so reading's always there, and then I'm either playing video games or watching TV, and normally TV is the one that gets cut out.
Remind me to get into video games because we could talk for an hour and a half
Okay.
about that. And
Okay.
I
Okay.
and I
Yeah.
and I, and I swear, like, if anybody ever comes back to my channel after that, it'll be hilarious because who was I doing that with? I think I was doing it with Alan and Jimmy and maybe John, and I don't even know, but like chat was so lost. They had no idea what we were talking about. Daniel Klauser is here. Hello, everyone. Talk about another gentleman that's well read. Talk about my favorite person in New Zealand. Derry is here. Hi, guys. Sorry to be late doing laundry. Happy, what is it, Thursday morning for you, Derry.
In
Heidi
the
says
future.
yes. Hello from the future, right, Derry? Hello from the past, Derry. We are reaching back from the past. So, anyway, where was I? Oh, let's talk a little bit about, well, by the way, I wanted to show everybody just so you know that I don't just own a black ties. I actually almost wore this one tonight
Oh,
because I wanted to be, we do themes at Belltube, but I have to let the man himself carry the orange. I couldn't do it. I was going to do it. And I was like, no, just show you guys. So you just recently took a trip that I'm going to say less than a half a percentage of people that follow sci-fi fantasy booktube will ever go on in their life.
yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your experience in deciding to go to and going to and what you did at the Sturgis motorcycle rally?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you don't live
So
anywhere near South Dakota.
no, I do not. No. So I have been riding motorcycles. What did I buy my first one in 2020? I think. So I've been riding for 4-ish, 5-ish years, somewhere in there. And I have gone to some other motorcycle rallies, and obviously Sturgis is like the one. It is
Right.
the largest motorcycle rally in the world. It's known to just have some really great riding and everything. And for whatever reason, I decided to do it the hard way and ride. So I'm in the greater Charlotte region of North Carolina. So I
Okay.
decided to ride from here all the way there and then all the way back. So there, it's like 1,700 miles there and back, and then not counting all of the riding I did while I was there. So it was an extremely, extremely long trip. I kind of just wanted to be able to say I did it, just kind of like one of those adventures. I have a 2022 Harley Pan America Special, and the funny thing is that bike had a orange tank. That
No way.
one of the models has an orange tank, and unfortunately, mine has the blue tank.
Oh my gosh. Can we
Funny
paint
enough,
it? Can we paint it? I mean, I don't know.
I've thought about trying to find somebody who will trade me their orange tank for my blue one because there's no difference between the tanks other than the color.
Right.
So I have thought about doing that, but yeah, so rode all the way out there, stayed out there for about a week, got to see some really cool stuff: Devil's Tower, Mount Rushmore, Badlands National Park. I feel like I'm forgetting one, but those were some of the highlights
Sure.
from
And
it for
I
sure.
and I'll tell everybody, if you've not seen Tom's most recent video, he actually took some B-roll and he took some photos. And that's another thing I love about your channel is that you show IRL photos of what you're up to. And I think that helps engage your viewers way more. They get to know the man behind the camera, quite a bit more. So yeah, definitely check out where Tom recapped because he's got some great photos of the rally. And it's funny because you had mentioned in that video that you liked really more of the nature aspect of
Yes.
being out. There's your inner book nerd coming out. You
Hmm.
like the nature aspect of the area around South Dakota more so than
Yes.
Main Street Sturgis,
Yeah.
where, let's face it, I mean,
Uh,
if I tried to get on a bike, I would probably drop it before I hit my mailbox. It would be bad. But I have a lot of friends that work at Sturgis because I'm in Minneapolis, and
right.
it's very close, and they'll go do bartending and promotional modeling and things like that. So I think I'd probably find myself in the midst of the insanity of Sturgis at night.
It's something. It is. I mean,
Yeah,
I had to do it. I had to experience it, and it downtown Sturgis is it's something. It is. It's pretty.
yeah,
I mean, it's crazy. But it's in a cool way. I mean, I as much as that's not really like what I went for, it was still like a fun experience to be down there and
yeah.
just see all the craziness that is downtown Sturgis.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think you figured out on this first trip there what you liked about
Yeah.
this experience and what you didn't, whether you would ride the bike out there again,
Never.
or never again. I
No.
mean, have you ever done the drive? You probably haven't because you're on the wrong side of the country for this, but if you've ever driven from like Denver to Omaha or through Omaha to Iowa, there's a
Yeah.
stretch of like 10 or 11 hours of flat nothing. No
So
fields, no nothing, flat.
I'm trying to remember which highway it was. It was in Iowa. I think it was either Highway 90 or Highway 20. And we got onto that road, and my GPS said turn left in 207 miles.
Oh my
And
God.
so it was just, I mean, I was telling some people, I was like, it was just cornfields, and then the most exciting thing was every now and again you'd see like a field of soybeans instead, and that
Oh
was
my
like the most
gosh.
exciting thing to see. So once again, very glad I was able to do it.
Yeah,
Glad I did it. But yeah, I would totally go back to Sturgis and like
sure.
do that kind of riding up there. But I would trailer my bike for sure, for sure.
Absolutely. Stepan's got another question, and I was going to ask this one too, or something similar. What book have you read and before you thought it might be bad, but it turned out to be way better? Does anything come to mind that you were
Um,
just maybe not feeling at the beginning, but sort of turned a corner at some point in the book?
um,
It's
hmm.
hard on the spot to think.
So
I
I
know.
have I have a more recent one where I just went into the book with super low expectations, and that was a Time of Changes by Robert Silverberg,
Okay.
which is going to be like a contender for top 10 book of the year probably.
Wow. Okay.
But I went into it just being like, this is a older classic sci-fi book. I had been on kind of a cold streak with that kind of genre, and so I was like, this is probably just going to be another one of those. There's a couple gems of an idea in here, but it'll probably not be great. And I actually really ended up enjoying that book. It had some interesting ideas and stuff. So that's the most recent one. If I can look through my list and see, I rate all of my books. So I can see. Let's see. Is there anything else that comes to mind really quick? Uh,
Doug
that's
says
my
it
most
doesn't.
recent one.
Doug says it doesn't matter how you cross the Great Plains, Manitoba, the Dakotas, Nebraska, Kansas, or Texas. You're going to have at least one boring day, unless you like string or automobile Stonehenge. Yeah.
I was supposed to go to the automobile Stonehenge, and we ended up missing it. But that was one of the things I was going to do on my way back, actually. So that's funny he mentioned that.
And Michael says, all I remember going to the Dakotas is wall drug. I have no idea what that is.
So I went there. It
Okay.
is it's started out as a drugstore, I guess, but now it's just like a sprawling complex of like everything. It's got what has a dinosaur that will pretend to eat you. It's got
Jeez.
it's got ice cream. It's got, I mean, just a Harley dealership. It's got just all kinds of random stuff. But it was kind of cool to see. It's very close to Badlands National Park, so it's kind of easy to hit both of those at the same time.
Very cool. In sort of my preparation to do these shows, I like to go back and, oh, someone's here saying, Micah is saying, shout out to Orange from your fellow Tar Heel.
Oh, nice.
Because I know that I would miss that in the comments. So when I do these videos, I like to go back and I watch some of the earlier videos. And so yesterday and today, I was watching a bit of the Tom Orange catalog, which I enjoyed. And I watched your first video, and you made the newbie book tag.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think that that was a good idea because, I think that that's a great way of getting, people to know who you are, even though you never know if anybody's ever going to watch it because you don't have any, subscribers yet. Maybe somebody happens upon your channel.
Hmm.
But one of the things that I really liked that you said was is that one of the reasons that you were going to start a channel was also to have kind of like a video diary for yourself in that, so you could remember all these things, maybe without having to write down reviews or
Hmm.
things of that. Has that held up for you? Because you've been on BookTube
Yeah.
for, is it been a year and a half, 2 years?
Yeah,
Where are we
yeah.
at?
I
About a year and a
guess
half?
probably about a year and a half. Yeah, yeah. And so yeah, that has held true. Um, it is nice to because almost everything I've read since I started the channel has a review. Almost. There's maybe one or two
Yeah.
oddball things that don't, but yeah, that is still held true. It's still something that's nice. Like every now and again, I'll be like, huh, what did I think about that in the moment? Because a lot of my reviews are pretty fresh. I don't normally have
Right.
like a big gap between I read it when I
Right.
read. And so it's been nice to be able to be like, what did I think about that in the moment, and how do I feel about it now? Because that's actually kind of how I have spreadsheets where I rank everything, and
Of
so I
course
have
you do. You're a tech guy.
yeah, so I have one spreadsheet that is my overall ranking. So it has every book I've read since 2019 when I started reading again after college, and that document I'll like move stuff around if however
Sure.
I'm feeling that day. If I'm looking through something and I'm looking at it and I'm like, I think I actually like this more. I'll move it, and then I have one for each year. And I kind of leave those alone once that year is over. So like I'm not going to go back to my 2019 one to make sure it matches up
Right.
with the overall one. So yeah.
But I love the idea of it. And I have to shout out because you have a question, and I think you're going to like this question from the one and only legend herself, Janny Wurts. Tom, you are hard to reach. How do I ask if you want books sent?
Uh, wow, that is awesome because I love her books.
This is why you come on the show, you guys. If
Yeah,
you're ever
yeah,
wondering if you should come on for Whom the Bell Tolls, sometimes your favorite authors might show up and
yeah,
offer you books or how to talk to that. Is it okay if I get her your information?
yeah, absolutely. I think my email is in the description of all my videos, but maybe it's not. I think it should be.
Okay,
But yeah, I don't have like a Twitter. I do have an Instagram, but I don't. I know a lot of people use Twitter or X or whatever we call it
sure.
now as
Yeah.
like a main communication one. But I think there's an email and my Instagram if in there for sure.
Well, I'll tell you, if for whatever reason, Janny, if you don't find his email on his description, just message me and I'll get you where whatever you need. But yeah, let's talk about the Wars of Light and Shadow and some Janny
Okay,
Wurts books
yeah,
because
absolutely.
this is a journey that I know John's in the chat and him and I are taking starting in January. I think along with
Yes.
a few other booktubers. You're a little bit further in.
Hmm.
Um, Janny says you list Instagram and she's not there. Maybe your
Okay.
email's not there. I'll get his info for you, no problem.
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk about that because did you
Yeah.
start off with the Wars of Light and Shadow, or had you read other Janny Wurts books first, or
No,
what did you do there?
I jumped in with Wars of Light and Shadow. So way back when Philip, Joanna, and AP were going to read that, they they sold it super well, and I was like, oh, I've got to read it, and that's kind of when I started. I've definitely been a little bit slower than them. My original goal was to kind of keep up pace with them, but I was definitely a little bit slower than they were. But that is how I got introduced to her, and
So you went
I
right for
decided
it, right for the
right
big
for it.
series.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, but that's just who you are. Michael's got a great comment here. I'm reading to Ride Hell's Chasm right now. I've never used a dictionary so much. Well, you know what? I have to tell you, Michael, when you have somebody like Philip Chase saying nobody sends me to the dictionary more than Janny Words, I think you're in probably pretty good company with an English professor with a PhD, also dictionary. So you went right for the big series.
Yep.
That is awesome. And
Yeah.
when did you started that? You said like after you started your channel or before?
No, so I think I read Curse of the Mistwraith before, and then I've read the next two since. Yeah, yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha.
So
But I think that there's absolutely nothing wrong with the pacing that you're doing it, because from every communication that I've had with Janny, she's intentionally writing these so you do space it off with
Yeah.
arcs.
Yeah, her
And
arcs are super nice to have. Yep.
yeah, really cool. And for anybody who's watching, she is famous for not leaving you on cliffhangers, because I think she said it's lazy or something like that. I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I totally loved it. Whatever she said, it was great. And of course, John's gonna kill my TBR again. Gonna start with the novella in December. Of course you are. God, you
He
know,
has a
I
bold strategy of
I
doing it and
swear to
Malazan.
God, if Philip doesn't move into Jacob's old room, I'm gonna, because somebody has to keep your TBR in check. Um, Left to his own devices, Mr. Minton, we don't know what he's going to be reading next. So, anyway, but so you jumped into the big series.
Hmm.
What has been your impression of just the world itself? Like, do you find it to be, I'm sure it's unique because Jan is
Yes.
unique, but like if you were talking to somebody who's not read any of her books before, um, and since you started with the big boy of the series,
Hmm.
how would you sell it? Because you said you really got the hype train from Philip and Joanna and AP.
Hmm.
What's the Tom Orange hype train like for that series so far?
So for me, I this is it. I love the series. It's not one that I would recommend to a lot of people because it's not the you have to give it the attention it deserves. And there are some series that you can go into and they're much easier to digest and you don't have to, give it that effort. And this is not one of those series. I would say Malazan is the same way. It deserves respect and you need to give it that respect.
Mm-hmm.
So if I found somebody who I was going to recommend it to, I would definitely tell them that it all pays off. It is worth it, that effort that you have to put in. And I don't want effort to sound like a bad thing. I just mean that
Right.
it has a certain scope and level to it that you need to be ready for before you just dive right in. And I think it's actually a really nice change of pace from a lot of the other stuff that I read that is easier and doesn't take that same level. I always say I've never appreciated like the actual words that are in a story the same way I do when I read one of her books. And so that is, and then I will just say it is big and epic, and it's going to play with what your idea of morality is and who is the good guy, who is the bad guy, and play with all of those fun things in an interesting way that you're not going to get in a lot of your average fantasy stories.
I think that that's an excellent pitch. You
Yeah.
sold me. John, I guess I do have to read this thing with you now because Tom Orange told me to. And of course, Janny's in the chat. So I was, I'm stuck anyway. No, I'm so excited for it. Evie's here. I'm so late, Brian. Hi, Tom. Hi,
Hey.
Evie. It's awesome to see you. Somebody had, oh, I love this comment from Derry because I think you just summed it up really well. If a picture paints 1,000 words, Janny Wurts' writing is like the frickin' Sistine Chapel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And the only book I've read so far is To Ride Hell's Chasm. My mom is actually reading To Ride Hell's Chasm, and
Oh,
she's
nice. Okay.
invested in the story already. And it's
Nice.
it,
That'll
it's
probably be the next one I read.
you're gonna love it. I
Yeah,
mean,
because I've read the first three of Wars in Light and Shadow, and I also read the Master of White Storm.
what's that one like? What's that
Th-
about?
So that one I would say is much more sword and sorcery. It
Okay,
almost so it kind of lures you in with a false sense of this is going to just kind of be monster of the week kind of stories. You're
sure.
following this kind of disgruntled character as he goes through and does like mercenary trip after mercenary trip, and then yet by the end of it you're kind of woven into this larger plot that is going on with some like really great character development. And I remember reading it and just being like, okay, this is like I've never read Cohen, the Barbarian, but I was like,
Yeah,
oh, I could see why maybe some people would like compare it to that. And then I was like,
sure.
oh no, this is so much more
A
deep.
little bit deeper, sure.
Yeah, once you really start to get into it. And so that one was a fun one. It's another one of her standalones.
And it's
And
a
I read that
standalone.
one because I saw so many people talking about to ride Hell's Chasm. And I was like,
Hmm.
well, what's this other one? And so
Yeah, I
that's
like your
why.
contrarian nature. I like people that'll be like, you know what, everyone's doing this, so I need to do that. The opposite, or not the opposite, but just something a little bit different.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
I was like, well, this other book she's written is getting a lot of hype and press. What about this other one that's probably just as good that isn't
right,
getting it? And
right.
so I'm super glad that one is also going to be one that's in contention for top 10 probably by the end of the year.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
I think booktubers like us are somewhat to blame for some of that because we glom on to a particular title and
Yep.
it almost becomes the book of, the year that everybody's talking about. It's like
Hmm.
I give my example is Shogun, which, came out in like 1975.
Yeah.
And, it's really been the last year or two on BookTube. Everyone's talking about Shogun. And it's like, this book's been out for close to 50 years already. Um,
Yeah.
but it happens. Hey, last week's guest, Jonathan Cohn, just popped in to say hi, loves your channel. That's
Oh, thank
awesome.
you.
And T Baggins is here and says howdy as well. That's pretty cool. So I want to talk a little bit about as you've talked about Janny's books being a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Not only complex, but just different than a lot of the other fantasy books, that are out there. As I've seen so many of your videos, I know that genre wise speaking, you're all over the place. Can you tell, everybody who's watching a little bit about just kind of your taste in general outside of fantasy? Because I know you're a big James Bond guy
Yeah.
and you're a sci-fi guy, but you're also a Hemingway guy. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot more to you than just fantasy and sci-fi. So if you could maybe share, a little bit about that, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, so I think some of it stems from when I was getting back into reading. It had been a while since I read, and I was just Googling like 100 books everyone should read, best 100 books of all time, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And so when you do that kind of thing, a lot of those classics do come up. And lo and behold, they get recommended because they are really good.
Right.
And so that is part of it. But then also the genre stuff doesn't matter as much to me. There are definitely some things that like I gravitate to a little bit more, but if something sounds interesting to me, it can be whatever. It can be a thriller, it can be anything. It could be a romance story. If I think the general premise or somebody can sell it to me,
Right.
sometimes even if they are just passionate enough about a book, I put it on the list and I'm like, why not? If it resonated with somebody else, why can't it resonate with me? And so
Absolutely.
that's kind of how I spread out my reading a little bit.
Are there particular booktube channels that you find yourself aligning with that when they like a book, you tend to like it? Because I think that's made for better reads for all of us on booktube is that once you find a couple of channels that you really align with, your chances of running into a clunker um, are reduced to some
Um,
degree.
yeah. So funny enough, I have found more. So Matt from Matt's Fantasy Book
Mm-hmm.
Reviews, we have plenty that we agree on and stuff. But for the most part, if he doesn't like a book, I know I'm not going to like that book. And it's funny because
Interesting.
some of our 5-star stuff will differ on and have some opinions on some of the more positive things we have for books. But some of the negative stuff, we have some very similar, not for us kind of tastes.
Right.
Yeah, he's one. Let's see, Mike is another one. When I want to find out about like a coming of age story, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the ones that Mike has talked about, I end up also really connecting with. Murphy's probably the one who I get the most recommendations from.
Okay.
And not even that they all work for me, but just the way she's able to sell the
Right.
book to me.
Right.
I end up reading a lot of things that I see her reading or talking about because she just has that enthusiasm that makes me want to get into it. So
Yeah, she definitely has unabashed enthusiasm about books that she
yeah,
likes. Chris, all the way from down under, says, hi, Brian. Hi, Tom. And we have a question from Michael. He's already itching for spooky season. Anything good on your TBR, Tom? Are you a horror reader at all?
a little bit, not too much. This year I'm going to probably read The Deep for sure,
Okay.
which is what is that Nick Cutter, I think is his
It
name.
is.
Yeah,
Yes.
I read The Troop from him last year, and my girlfriend started reading The Deep, and she got too scared at the end, and so she doesn't know how the book finishes. So she wants me to read it so I
And
can
tell
tell her
you?
how it ends. Yeah,
That's awesome.
but I have enjoyed the limited amount of horror I've read. Some of I know Stephen King. A lot of people consider him just a horror reader
Yeah.
or writer,
Right.
but I think he's a little bit more broad than that. But I have really enjoyed a lot of the King I've read as well.
Absolutely. Speaking of your girlfriend, I watched one of the videos that she was in with you. Has she been in more than one? I
No,
don't
just the
know.
one.
Just the one.
Just the one. Yep.
Did she
Yeah.
not like it, or is
No,
it just
no. We have plans to do. We both kind of want to reread Twilight, and so we will probably do that together. That'll probably be one
you
that we do.
you crush stereotypes like nobody I've ever had on this show before.
Yeah.
10 minutes ago we were talking about going to Sturgis.
Yes. And now I'm going to be rereading
Now we're
Twilight.
talking about reading Twilight. Um
Rereading. I've read it already.
Rereading. Oh my god. Oh my god. I
Yep.
got Joanna's somewhere here in the chat. I
Hey,
missed it.
Joanna.
Bring on spooky season. John, no, I don't read horror books, but I'm on Team Philip when it comes to horror. But
Yeah.
that is, I love the fact that you guys are gonna do more video because you guys just had great on camera chemistry. And that's not always the case when you get two people in front of the camera. And folks, if you're wondering if she was also wearing orange, I'm not going to tell you. You're going to have to go to Tom Orange's channel, subscribe, and take a look and see if what she was color that she was kicking. One of the things that I appreciate so much of, yeah, John, I know I just read Mayberry, but that was a government thriller. It wasn't horror. I don't know. Seriously, I could end up in a conversation with him just from the chat if I'm not careful. One of the things that I have so much in common with you about is our rating system. And
Okay.
even though neither of us are huge proponents of rating in general, because it's so subjective, and yes, objectively, some books are categorically better for their just use of language or their the plot devices, whatever, but you and I are notoriously, I'll use the word stingy about handing out 5-star reviews. Could you go into why you are like that, or what makes a 5-star for you? Because
Yeah.
very few people that I've seen on BookTube are like that. You are, I am, Mike is to some degree. You don't see him throwing 5 stars around all that often. But I think a lot of other people are far more friendly and they just interpret a 5-star different. So maybe if you could let us know how you interpret a 5-star and maybe some of your 5-star books and what kind of like and why they're 5-star books for you.
Yeah. So normally, for something to get a 5-star rating from me, it's going to touch me in an emotional way. Now that can be happy, sad, angry. One of those major emotions is going to be on the forefront there. And I think part of the reason why I developed that rating system is I got really tired of. I think it really comes from somebody actually said this in a video, but they were tired of video game rankings.
Okay.
Where, IGN would come out and be like, this is an 88, it's a horrible game. And it's like,
right.
well, why are we
right.
using like an 88's great? What are we what is the
right.
scale we're using here? And so I wanted my scale to at least mean something. And so that is why I'm a little bit harder with it. But yeah, I really think that it takes a special book to get me to feel like a certain way about it. And I think I've been pretty consistent with that. I think, hold on, I can tell you, I have given out 18 5-star ratings since 2019. So
that's
not a whole lot.
Yeah. I would say that's you're saving those for the ones that really impact you in some way. Is it mostly how it impacts you, or can it be just the book itself? I'll give you an example. So I just read Cloud Atlas a couple of months ago, and I'm debating whether or not it's a 5-star book for me, because I didn't totally love the book. It didn't really resonate with me in ways like Piranesi does, which is a 5-star book for me. But I'm still I haven't rated it yet, but I'm still kind of thinking about it because it's such a brilliant work of art that I don't, you know what I mean? Just because I didn't,
Yeah,
I think you get it. Where
yeah.
does something like that fall for you? Like when you can recognize that a book is so tremendously well done, even if it doesn't totally resonate with you, how would you rate that?
That would probably for me. It's funny. I think that would probably end up being a 4 star,
Okay.
because I feel like I every time I've read a book, I know it's a 5 star. I don't think I've ever gone and been like, is it a
I don't
4 or 5?
know.
It's
Yeah.
always like, oh, this is one of those,
Yeah.
and it doesn't always happen, right away. It
Yeah.
it can take till I'm almost done with the book for it to be like it all comes together. It all comes. It
Sure.
can up until the last couple of pages. I give the book the whole time. I don't close the door on it until I'm done with the book. Uh, I can appreciate, like, there are books that I have read where I look at it and I'm like, this is objectively, or as objectively as you could say, like an amazing book. I totally understand why this could be somebody's favorite, or this is the pinnacle of a certain genre, and then still it's not for me, and so it still ends up with like a much lower rating.
Sure.
So that's, I think, how some of those. Cloud Atlas would probably be an interesting one. I've heard a lot of things about that book, so I can see why
I
you're probably struggling
I
to rate it a
think,
little bit.
I think the fact that you admire and have such love for the Three Body Problem series, I actually think you'd love Cloud Atlas.
Okay.
Um, I think there are so many ideas built into that book that, like you said, it doesn't necessarily need to sync up, but ultimately it needs to converge, come together, and, form a complete work. And it
Hmm.
really does in the most unique way I've ever read of a book.
Oh, okay.
So I think you might dig that. Derry wants to know about thrillers. Do you read thrillers at all?
Yeah, yeah. So some of I early on, like the Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, all those Dan Brown ones. Like if
Yeah,
that, I mean, like I know people love to talk crap on it, but if
right.
Dan Brown comes out with another Robert Langdon book, I'm getting it day one and reading it.
Yeah.
Blake Crouch also has, I guess
Hmm.
people like to call those techno thrillers because they're kind of like, have a sci-fi
Sure. Yeah,
bend to
mine
them.
too.
But
Yep.
I really, really, I enjoyed what Dark Matter and one of his earlier books, Run. I read, really enjoyed those.
Okay.
So yeah, thrillers for sure, absolutely.
Have you read Recursion?
Not yet, no, no, not yet.
I think if you like Dark Matter, you'll like Recursion.
Yeah,
They're so similar, just in, like you said, that bend of techno
yeah,
sci-fi to it, but yet
yeah,
absolute page turners.
yeah,
Um, yeah,
yeah.
short chapters. And speaking of short chapters, page turners, and books that you just can't put down, let's talk about Memories of Ice, because
Yeah, let's do that.
I think, I don't know if you're trying to set a record for how long to get through Memories of Ice. I'm kidding. If you guys don't know, Memories of Ice is book 3 in Malazan Book of the Fallen. Tom is working his way through that, and I am totally kidding him, by the way, because I am somebody that thinks you need to read these books at the pace in which you're going to understand it and have the mental focus to understand it. Same with Janny Wurts books, because if you come home
Yep.
after a long day of work and you're going to sit down and read 2 hours of Malazan and your brain is just not at peak performance, it's really difficult. Janny says Memories of Ice left mental scars. I don't want to know. Um, but tell us about your Malazan experience so far, because I suspect you're going to get through the 10 books. That just seems
Yep.
like your nature. I don't
Yep.
think you'd get to book 3 and quit.
No.
So how's your Malazan experience been? How did it start? What got you
Yeah.
moving on that? And
So yeah, so I obviously I've watched a lot of BookTube for years before I made a channel, so I was relatively aware of it and just how highly people speak of it. So that's how it kind of got put on my radar. Put it off for the longest time, and then last year I read all of the Cosmere. So it was like my year of Sanderson, kind of lining up
right.
with the Kickstarter. So I did all of that, and I was like, okay, I'm done with the Cosmere now. What is going to be my next like big one that I do? And I was kind of between Memories of Ice and Realm of the Elderlings, or
Okay.
Memories of Ice,
Yeah.
Malazan,
Yeah.
Malazan and
Yeah.
Realm of the Elderlings, and I
Yeah.
was like, you know what? Let's just finally do it. Let's pull the trigger and do Malazan at the same
Sure.
time as I'm doing Wars of Light and Shadow.
Which I
But
think is somewhat bonkers. Is
it
and
yes.
I'm taking a break after book 4 because
Hmm.
my three Sherpas of Malazan, Philip, Chase, Joanna, and Jimmy Nuts. I asked them all, where do I take a break in Malazan, because I'm going to be starting Wars of Light and Shadow, and I'm not reading them concurrently. I think my brain's not big enough. They both told me after book 4.
Hmm.
I don't know how you're doing them at both. And I have to respond to this comment. No, you don't. John, you just started Realm of the Elderlings. You're already addicted to it. You're starting Wars of Light and Shadow with me in a handful of months. I swear to God, this man is going to be
he's
reading 20.
he's on a warpath.
He's going to come on so disheveled one of these days on Talking Story. And he's going to be like, I've been up. Welcome back to Talking Story. I've been up for 72 hours. I don't even know if the camera's on, but my brain is fried anyway.
Yeah.
But I interrupt you. Your journey through Malazan.
Hmm.
You started with obviously Gardens of the Moon, like we all
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. And
Did you fall in love with that right away?
I enjoyed my time with it. It
Yeah,
took me a little bit to get into it, but yeah, by the end of that book, I was like, oh, I get it. I see why people like really resonate with this series. And I was like, if this is the start, I can only imagine where this journey goes. And some of that enthusiasm definitely left me with with Dead House Gates. Uh,
yeah.
by the end of that book, like the ending of that book is just, I mean, something else. And so that the ending of it kind of saved that book for me,
Okay.
because there was a lot of it that I respected what was going on. I got it. I can see this, but it just wasn't there for me
Hmm.
till the end. And then with Memories of Ice, I have thoroughly been enjoying it. It has just I've been taking a lot of time with it and pushing it off
Yeah,
when I probably should have like been like, no, you're just buckle down and finish it.
yeah.
But yeah,
How much I have? I'm at the 70% mark of Dead House Gates right now.
okay,
I'll be finishing it by Friday or Saturday.
okay.
Um, where are you in Memories of Ice?
I am like right at the 50% mark.
Okay.
So right in the middle of it, and yeah, the one nice thing with that is I've been doing vlog clips for it, so I can go back and if I need to refresh my memory, I haven't needed to. I still feel like I have a good grasp on what was going on, but I can if I
That
need
that
to.
that's really good to do. I mean, I am horrible at taking notes. Joanna's like the best at like
Oh
journaling her notes and writing down what happens where. She can pull out a journal and she's got a great memory to begin with. So, I just fully respect that. Honestly, I can't tell you what I had for lunch this afternoon.
yeah,
So like, yeah, I mean, Joanna still journals every day, right?
yeah, that's awesome. I wish
Totally.
that's one of those habits I got into.
There's two people that I follow on BookTube that talk about journaling, and Joanna and Jared Henderson. And
Mm,
Jared's done dedicated videos
yeah,
on journaling, which I think are just great. But
yeah,
yeah, I love the fact that you have those vlogs so you can remember, because I know what's going to happen. For me, when I take a break in a series, I almost inevitably have to go back and look online for a review of that book, and yet try to do it somewhat with blinders on, because
right.
the AI in Google will tell you what happens at the end of the next book when you're
Yeah,
just trying to get a recap of the prior one. Totally spoils it for you.
yeah,
Oh my.
yeah. It definitely can. And I will say, Wars of Light and Shadow, I think prepared me for some of the Malazan stuff because it took me, I think, 270 days to finish Ships of Merior.
Okay.
Uh, and part of that was there were days where I would like read like a paragraph of it and just kind of like I'm going to sleep because I was
Right.
just tired from the day.
Right.
And then so that has kind of prepared me to like be okay with taking these longer breaks in the middle of books, which isn't something I would normally do.
Yeah.
But like doing that with Ships of Merior was kind of nice to it kind of prepared me for it. So I don't feel as bad about doing that anymore as I probably would have in the past.
Absolutely. I think like I'm lucky in the fact that I'm self-employed and I can set my own schedules a little bit. And I
Okay.
think what I'm going to be doing for Wars of Light and Shadows, a lot of times in the morning, I do some kind of really basic, brainless type of work that's just really mundane and easy to do. And I could do it when I'm tired. I could do it, at 8 o'clock at night. But
Hmm.
to sit down with a Janny Wurts book or Steven Erikson book at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night sometimes gets a little bit, yeah, I can read the one paragraph and
Yeah, yeah,
that's about all.
exactly.
That's all I got. But
Yeah.
oh my God. Here's a question for you. This is, I have no idea if it's related or not, but I thought of it earlier, so I wrote
Okay.
it down. If you could live in any fantasy world for a day, what would it be and why?
For a day.
Yeah, or a
Okay.
week. We could say a day or a week. Maybe it's a week vacation.
A week vacation.
Sure,
If I can slip the Pokemon world into here, that
sure.
that's probably number one.
We are breaking these stereotypes of these bodybuilders, you guys. Bodybuilder, strongman who's reading Twilight, going to Sturgis, and going to the
Yeah,
Pokemon land.
yeah, exactly. No, I've always been a big fan of Pokemon, and like the idea, like I don't know if you've ever played those games or really consumed any of that content.
A little after my time.
Yeah,
But I mean, I'm a big video game guy myself, but I just never
sure,
really got into Pokemon.
sure, yeah. Another one of those games that kind of right age when it was starting, when it was
Yeah.
really getting popular for
Yep.
me. But it just seems like such a relaxing, but also adventurous world that it just kind of like blends in with what I would really like to do.
Yeah.
So yeah,
You could have given me 1,000 options of what I would guess Tom Orange would answer, and Pokemon wouldn't have even been in the top 100 billion. So this is, I love these
yeah,
conversations.
yeah,
We get totally different, answers
yeah,
than I even expect.
yeah.
I would say, oh, I got a Harry Potter. Oh, I'd love to
I
be
mean
in the
that would
Shire. And
also the Shire
like T
also, yeah,
Baggins is saying he wants to go to Bilbo's birthday.
sure,
So
of course, yeah. I mean those are classic choices. Like it would be hard to pass up
I
the,
just
the
love
Shire, of course,
I
but
just love how you are so outside. You're in, but you're out. Like you have a knowledge of everything that this corner of booktube gets into, but you are all over the board. And it's totally cool that you do that. I want to talk real quick about one series that I know you're a big fan of, some books more than others, because I think you've mentioned they don't hold up quite as well. And those are the James Bond books. And
yes,
really the only other person that I've seen on BookTube talk about James Bond books is Mike. Tell us a little bit about your experience and how and why you picked up an Ian Fleming book, and what was your
yeah.
first one, and kind of what drew you into it.
Yeah, so I watched a lot of those movies when I was a kid.
Yeah, same
I can
here.
specifically remember like going to Blockbuster and like that Indiana Jones were like
Sure.
some of the I don't even remember Indiana Jones. I remember a little bit more. The James Bond ones not as much, but like I can remember doing that. And then it was actually Mike. He said he was going to read them, and I was like, I had never even considered reading the James Bond books.
Right.
I guess I like vaguely knew that they existed, but I was like, why not? Let's.
I don't know if the stream. Somebody put into the chat if I'm here or not. I don't know. Shut. How about now?
Am I back?
You are back. I didn't know if
Okay.
it was you or if it was me.
Not sure. Okay.
Perfect. Okay, cool. So yeah, everybody had to see my noggin for a minute without the orange. So sorry for
Yeah.
that.
Not sure.
Um, so you were talking about Mike had talked about James Bond, and you hadn't thought about ever reading it. What was
Hmm.
the first one that you grabbed?
Yeah, Casino Royale. So I read them in release order. So I made my way through from his first one all the way through the series. So just in I can't remember the order off the top of my head, but Casino Royale is the first one and went from there.
Was that your favorite one?
No, so my favorite one is actually Diamonds Are Forever.
Diamonds Are Forever.
Diamonds Are Forever.
I
Yeah.
did, I do know that because I did watch the video when you said that.
Yeah.
So what a great theme song. Oh
Yes.
God, I swear to God, Chris, I may ban you from the chat for this comment. Orange you glad he's back.
Yeah.
Oh God. I mean, literally, Chris, if I knew how to ban you, I'd ban you, I have this guy's ability when it comes to managing the chat. So yeah. Anyway, so Diamonds Are for that theme
Yeah.
song. That and she did isn't that Dame Shirley Bassey, I think, who sings the Diamonds Are Forever and the Goldfinger Bond themes for the movies.
I think that's right. I think it is the same. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
which I think for me is probably a little bit of a hot take. I don't think most people would put that book as their favorite, but it's the one that I had got the most enjoyment out of. And then it would probably be after that. It's probably Moonraker and then Casino Royale. So it does start out with a pretty strong entry.
Can I ask you, because Moonraker for me was a little bit, it was right at the end of Roger Moore's movie.
Okay.
I don't know. No, it wasn't his last one, but it was one of his last ones. I think maybe A View to a Kill might have been his last one. But the what was better? Have you seen the movie Moonraker?
If I have, I don't remember it enough to say. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't love the movie, but I could see how the book would be really cool because
Yeah.
it incorporates, almost like a bit of a sci-fi vibe to Bond.
Yeah. That book, uh, the villain was interesting and just I don't know, it flowed really well. Some of the later books get way out into left field, and you're just like, this is
Yeah,
okay. What are we doing? We're sword fighting in samurai armor on an island that's not supposed to
yeah.
exist, and it's like, okay, but
It
the early
jumped the
ones
shark a
still,
bit.
yes,
So
yes,
Doug says Live and Let Die has the best theme song and the best boat chase. Very data. I agree. That was really the first Bond movie I ever saw was Live and Let Die, and that was Roger Moore's first appearance as
okay.
James Bond. But they had such cool villains. It was kind of like a voodoo style villain,
Hmm.
and it was yeah,
I've been trying to. I had the original idea of once I finish them to go through and watch all of the movies,
sure.
and kind of goes with TV. I don't end up watching a lot of TV or movies, and so I think I've watched two of them since then.
Wow. Have you
Yeah,
read Live and Let Die?
yeah. I read
So you've
all.
read all of them.
Yeah, I've read all 14. I've read all of the Ian Fleming ones. Yeah.
Where does that book where does that book kind of hang out in your rankings of the books themselves?
If I remember correctly,
It's got like I said, it's got Mr. Big, I think, is the villain,
yeah.
and
Let's see.
it's got the voodoo shaman guy.
Yeah.
It's the Haitian guys.
Yeah. Let's see. Fleming. I can see. I think if I remember correctly, it's a little bit further down.
What's her
I
name
have
is
it
in the
right in the
movie?
middle.
Right in the middle.
Right in the middle at 7. Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Let's bop off of that topic for a second because I'm interested to know for you, because when you did your newbie book tag, you talked about one of the reasons that you did the channel is, for your own video diary, but also I guess I'm wondering, as you've been on this journey for a year and a half, what's been like the most rewarding part for you in creating content, outside
Yeah.
of just having that video memory that you can go
Yeah.
back, as a personal diary? What's been meaningful for you?
Getting to do stuff like this is super awesome. It is really the getting to talk with other people who, even if they're not super into the book I'm talking about at the time,
Yeah.
the community and getting to like talk with other people is easily the best part of it. Like I'll post a video and I don't really care how many people watch it or anything, but if I have some people to talk to in the comments for it, that is without a doubt the best part. And just getting to meet people who like similar things and have similar interests is the best part.
Yeah, Derry says word, and John is clapping because he's famous for that too. He's doing this to engage with fellow readers and
Yeah.
engage in the comments. And I think that is a really rewarding part.
Yep.
And Tom's also saying, John is also saying, we're so close, we
Yes.
got to meet up at a bookstore or something.
Absolutely. We do. Absolutely.
Yeah, you guys get along great. I mean, you guys are just super dudes to begin with. When you're on, it's funny, you've kind of got like this reserved, passionate style. Like I'm very bombastic when I do videos. You have more of a calming presence, I think, but your passion for the books themselves still comes through equally well, maybe even more so because it's not so over the top in your delivery style.
Hmm.
Um, how do you choose which books land, on a video for you? Is it every book that you read, or is it, how do you determine like where you want to spend your time
Yeah.
making these videos?
Yeah. So for the longest time, it was every book. Every book I read got a video. I think I want to move away from individual
Hmm.
book reviews a little bit. I Part of it is I have really enjoyed watching people's reading blogs,
Yeah,
and so I kind of want to try it and see if I like making them as much as I like watching them.
sure.
And so
And,
I'm kind of
and I
playing
would
with that
imagine, and I
idea.
would imagine you do that for books you've already read, correct? I mean, it's weird to read. For me, it's weird to watch a vlog for a book that I've not read because I don't want to get spoiled to it.
Hmm. Yeah, I I will watch them even for books that I haven't read
Okay.
personally. I'm a little bit spoiled. Like spoilers don't bother me as much as some people, I think, which is
Yeah.
kind of that kind of goes back to I think endings are overrated for a lot of
Okay.
stuff. I try not to let endings, override everything else that has happened in a book. So if I get spoiled on something, to me the journey is still like I can know what's going to happen still most of the time. There
Yeah.
are obviously some things you want to be that have that surprise and
Sure.
everything, but in general, it doesn't bother
I
me as
I
much.
think that's a pretty mature way of looking at it. I am far more immature when it comes to that. I don't even read the back of a book. I don't want to know what it's about at all.
See,
I'll look at the cover and that's it.
I do the same thing, except it's not for spoiler reason. I do like going into books blind though.
Yeah, same here.
But with watching people's vlogs, it's I don't know. It's just I just still enjoy it. I like that content, and so even if it's a lot of times it ends up being for books that I know I'm probably never going to read anyway, and I'll still
Yeah,
just watch it and just be like,
yeah.
I want to know what this person ends up thinking about this book, and maybe it will end up on a list because I'll
Y-
see there have been books where I'm like, I'll never read that, and then they just are so like into it. I'm like, well, it's on the TBR now.
Totally. Well, I also think that watching vlogs, of other booktubers, for me, it's like we can't watch ourselves read a book, right? So we're not getting that otherly person watching us. So we're almost like seeing what our experience is by watching somebody else because we don't know. We're we're
Yeah,
we're we're the one reading the book.
yeah,
It's interesting. It's almost like holding a mirror up to ourselves, but it's a different person as they go through chapter and chapter and as they dissect how an opening went or
yeah,
which characters they fell in love with or why.
yep.
Are you so we were talking about Three Body Problem and how there really are no characters. Do you kind of consider yourself, and I think I already know the answer, but I'll let you answer it, sort of like an overall, you like all kinds of stuff? Like you wouldn't consider yourself a character first guy or a plot first guy or an
Yeah,
idea first guy. When I watch your content, I don't really think you're anything in particular, first
right.
anything.
Yeah, the way because that's a pretty popular question. Like, oh, do you care more about this or that? What I
Hmm.
normally answer it with is, I'm a moments reader. I'm reading for the big moments, and so
Interesting.
those can be because that's what I am looking for. Those can be character driven moments. They can be plot driven moments. They can be idea driven moments, and so those big impactful things that happen in a book, no matter what it is, that is what I am really reading for there in the end.
That is awesome. That is
Yeah,
one of the best answers I've ever had to a question on this show, period. Because I've never heard anybody say that they're a moment reader.
yeah,
And see, I love doing these shows because I am with you on that.
yeah,
Um, I really am because I like the classic sci-fi that has no um, characters whatsoever, but I also like stuff like, book one of First Law or the beginnings of the Realm of the Elderlings, which is all very character focused more so than plot driven.
Hmm.
I have to say, I might be a moment reader like
Join me.
Tom Orange. I might have to join the cult of Orange
Yeah.
when it comes to being that type of reader. That is awesome. And when somebody like Joanna says cheers to that answer, I think that's pretty awesome. Do you ever get, and I'm sure you do, because this you've not been. I think the only people that could say I don't to this answer is maybe somebody who's only had a channel for a few months, but you've been at it over a year. How do you handle the inevitable creative burnouts that can happen when it comes to making booktube content while also balancing like real life stuff? Like I mentioned, I'm self-employed, so it's a little bit easier for me to kind of work in what I'm doing, but for somebody that is a traditional vocation occupation, how do you deal with the inevitable burnout that comes yet still want to keep your channel alive?
Yeah, I think one thing that has definitely helped me is having not a strict schedule, but I do have that kind of rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
I've always kind of been somebody who kind of thrives under a schedule.
Okay.
This is I have eaten the same lunch for 6 years in a row
What
every
is
day.
it?
It is 4 ounces of chicken, and then I will alternate between egg whites and eggs,
So
and then
you're a protein guy for lunch for sure.
yeah, yeah, and then a protein bar. And I have eaten basically that same lunch for 6 years now. And before that, when I was from from the time I was about in fifth grade until I graduated high school, I had basically the same lunch. Just to give you an idea. So the schedule thing definitely
Yeah,
helps me. It's just I if I weren't thinking of making a video or getting something ready for it, I would feel like something's kind of missing.
sure.
And so that definitely helps with some of that. I will also say if I'm in like the spur of the moment and a video comes to me, I just write it down so that it doesn't disappear
Yeah,
into the ether.
yeah.
And when if you do that enough, you'll end up with plenty of ideas to
Ideas.
have. And so then if you're not feeling overly creative or overly like
Hmm.
wanting to do it, it makes it easier on you and kind of is a little bit of a cheat code for yourself there.
That's exactly what I do. Whenever
Hmm.
I come up with an idea for a video, I throw it in an email to myself and I just keep a
Yep.
list.
Yep.
And a video I'm shooting tomorrow is from one that honestly, had I not written it down to myself, it would have like been into the ether in a thought that just dissipated and I
Yep.
wouldn't do it. And I'm super excited to make the video because I'm like, I
Awesome.
think this is a good idea. But if anybody's wondering, I'm doing a video on my favorite Motley Crues in fantasy.
Oh,
So
nice.
I think that that's going to be a fun one. John says he tries to pick up the same Little Debbie snack cake every time he gets.
I need to know which
You
one it
know,
is. That's the important
it's
question.
like, I read these comments from John, and I know by the time I'm three-quarters of the way through the sentence, I might not even be able to say the last comment. I what a dude. So I like that how you keep routine and you write down stuff for when the creative burnout happens. You've got a backlog of
Yep.
ideas. That do you flesh them out, when you're writing them, or you just sort of like bullet point, like this is an idea, this is an idea, this is an idea?
Yeah, so normally I'll have just the idea, and if I do decide to use that as a video, I'll go in and flesh it out with some bullet points and stuff. Every now and again, I've made one that's a little bit of a deeper dive, and I don't want to say it has a script, but it has something that's more akin to like a script. Not that I'm reading straight from it, but it really is more
Right,
fleshed out than I like to do it a little bit more off the cuff and have just kind of flow a little bit more naturally. Not saying that I don't think about it beforehand in anything,
right.
but that is kind of how I've tried to model it a little
Yeah, I
bit.
mean, I do something similar. I basically will write a word or two down in front of me to just try to stay on topic, which for me is clearly, we know, for the last hour plus, difficult for me to do. Speaking of which, if you could interview any fantasy author, alive or dead, who would it be and what would you ask him?
Oh, so I would love to talk to Robert Jordan.
Okay.
The Wheel of Time is probably my favorite fantasy series.
Okay.
So getting to talk to Robert Jordan would just be awesome. And
When
I
did
would
you
want,
when did you read the Wheel of Time?
2022
Okay, so recently.
ish, maybe 21. Is that when I started it? Somewhere in there. I think it led in between 2 years. Yeah.
Did you read it straight through, or
Uh,
did you break it
I
up with other books?
Yeah, so I tried to do one Wheel of Time book a month and
Yep.
then something else, some other books. There at the end, when I was really like sucked into it, I think I ended up just kind of reading them back to back to back.
Sure.
But yeah, I would read one and then read something else the rest of the month and then go back to Wheel of Time.
So what would you ask Robert Jordan?
So I would want to know what his plans were for the series after book 14, because to me, and I think this is even like slightly confirmed. I've never looked into it too much, but I think there was much more planned after the initial series finishes. I think there was a lot more, and I would love to just know where are we going, what's going to happen, and some of that stuff.
Just to know what it was.
Just more Wheel of Time. Yeah, I know. It's not for everybody, and it definitely has its quirks and everything. But
Sure.
I love that series, and I think it's sad that he passed before he could finish it, and then
Right.
especially because I think he had a lot more outside of just that initial story we did get.
Sure.
I
I mean,
think there was more.
the world is, you know, I like how Brandon Sanderson finished the series. I really
Hmm.
do. But this is an existing world that could be written in all day long if Robert
Hmm.
Jordan was still around.
Yeah,
And you know that he would have for sure. He wasn't just going
absolutely.
to leave it at that.
Yeah,
The wheel weaves as it weaves.
yeah.
I suppose this is a question that I wrote down, but I I I ask this to a lot of people, but do people at your job know that you have a booktube channel, or do they watch it
Uh,
at all? Has anybody ever said anything?
one of my coworkers knows about it. I think
Okay.
he is the only one because we had talked about books and I had mentioned it, and I don't know if he like regularly watches, but I do have one coworker who knows about it, but outside of that, no.
No, they don't know.
Yeah, it's
They're not looking. They're not looking up the fantasy
no.
book genre. What do you think of like the current state of fantasy literature? Are there trends that you're kind of excited about?
Trends I'm excited about. I mean, I think it is great that we're seeing just self-published in general getting some of the recognition that it's probably deserved for a way longer time
Right.
than it did. So that is nice. Personally, I think the romantasy stuff is cool. I haven't read any of it, but the fact that it's putting so many eyes on fantasy in general, I think only positive things will come from that. There are more than enough opportunities for all kinds of books to still make it out there that if romantasy is helping people push towards fantasy, I'm not going to complain about it. I know
So,
some people
so
might throw their hands up, but
So, what are you going to say when a romantasy indie author asks Tom Orange, strongman Tom Orange, to be their cover model for their next romantasy title
uh, uh,
for the cover? Are you going to do it?
you know what? I might just have to.
You might just have to.
Yeah,
I got
I
a
might just
Fabio
have
wig
to.
around here somewhere. I can probably rock that out. Oh,
Oh yeah.
you'd be completely awesome at that.
My one stipulation is I have to be on a dragon.
Totally. I mean, although I suppose it is romantasy. If it was just romance, you'd have to be shirtless on a horse on a beach.
Sure, of course, the classic. Yeah,
The
the
classic,
classic. Yeah,
the wave coming
yeah,
through.
yeah.
Do you have like a consistent go to couple of books that if somebody is going to start reading fantasy, you offer up as suggestions? Because I know it's a little bit different depending on who is the person that you're recommending them to, but do you have
Mhm.
like a group of books that seem to be your go-tos when it comes to where should somebody start?
So I'm actually going to make a video on this next week, I think.
Awesome.
So for fantasy, it's the basic answer, but I'm probably going to point a lot of people to Mistborn
Sure.
just because it seems to have worked for so many people. And I think the best thing about Mistborn isn't necessarily Mistborn itself. It is that it opens you up to the Cosmere as a whole, and then that is its own built-in community right away that you can kind of get involved in and be interactive with if you want it. It's such a
Sure.
good gateway into so much extra stuff that is probably a really good one. I would love to just be able to recommend Wheel of Time to people. I don't, but I would love
Yeah,
to be able to. But
but I love your video where you talked about books that you love that are hard to recommend,
oh yes,
because Wheel of Time, yeah. I mean, do you want to dig into a what is it, 4.4 million words? Is that
yeah,
what it
something.
is?
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. Yeah,
Series, and yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the key question is okay, you want to read a fantasy book, to what level are you willing to dive into the deep end? Do you want something
sure.
like Mistborn that's going to be, could be one and done, or you can read the trilogy or whatever, or you
Yep.
could Tom Orange it and just go Janny Wurts, let's do the big series
Yeah, yeah,
right off the rip, as my friend Beard of Darkness says.
yeah.
But
I think
so Miss
Sanderson's like the easy answer there. Even if it's
Sanderson is,
Warbreaker or
yeah,
one of those. I I know he says people can start with his secret projects. I mean,
yeah.
I technically yes, but I feel like they are not actually the best entry point into his stuff. But
Sure. I actually, I would probably, I mean, there, for some people, I would say Mistborn. For others, I'd say Warbreaker.
yeah,
Just because I think it would depend on the person, but they're both great entry points. And I think, you know, this corner of BookTube talks about Warbreaker a lot, but just in the overall realm of the Cosmere itself, Warbreaker is one of my probably top three books.
oh, okay,
I just think it was just so well done in a tight package that didn't overly rely on a book one in front of it or a book two, three, four after it. It
sure,
just got the whole thing, really done. And it is Sanderson at his most Sandersonian, to me,
hmm
where if you read Warbreaker and you hate it, chances are you're probably not going to like anything that
yeah,
much in the
yeah.
it,
That's fair for sure.
it'd be a good taste test. Have you read First Law at all?
No, I have not. That is one of my big blind
we
spots.
we all have them. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like there's just not enough time in the day, right? It's like
Yep.
you've read Wheel of Time, other people haven't. You are, part way through your journey on Wars Light Shadow. I haven't even started it yet.
Yeah.
How about Dark Tower?
That is one that I have been pushing off because I want to read some more Stephen King
That's
first.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. You had talked about that there was a handful of Stephen King books that you thought might be relevant or you heard might have connections.
Yes.
Do you
Yep.
think that that's something that you got from reading your Year of the Cosmere, that you like having these books that
Yeah.
interconnect?
I
And
think I think so. It definitely doesn't hurt.
yeah,
But yeah, and then I had only read it when I really started to hear people talk about the Dark Tower,
sure.
and I was like, I want to read some more King to make sure I actually like him before I start this series. Even though I think some of the books I've read are probably longer than a lot of the Dark Tower ones,
Yeah,
but I
they
wanted to
are.
like get a feel for him as a writer, and he has very quickly shot up my ranking of like authors I really enjoy.
Which books of his are still kind of on your list before you jump into the Dark Tower?
I think The Shining is probably The Shining and maybe The Stand are probably the only two that I think are probably stopping me from it.
Okay,
Now the problem is now that I've read more, there's a lot more King that I want to read. So
sure.
now I'm like, well, do I just wait for the Dark Tower till I've read like 20 Stephen King books because there's so many and they're
Yeah,
mostly standalones.
yeah.
So yeah,
I think once you start the Dark Tower, you're going to plow right through it.
yeah,
I know that I did. Unlike somebody like Mike who was, waiting for publication and was there from day one, I read the whole Dark Tower after it was already complete.
yeah.
So I could not stop with that series. I think you're going to totally love it. But I
I think
totally
so.
get why you're reading some of the other ones first,
Yeah,
because they're Easter eggs. I mean, they really are. I mean, you could
yeah.
read The Dark Tower being totally unaware of all other Stephen King books
Yep.
and have a wonderful experience, but there's the Easter eggs that
Oh,
are pretty cool.
I get super excited even with some of the ones I've read where even if I just hear the name of a town, I'm like, oh, I got that, or that little stuff like that. I super enjoy getting those little Easter eggs. So that's part of it for sure.
I love it. Let me ask you, we've been going for about an hour and a half, so we just got like one or two more questions and we're going to get into something that we always do. But how do you see your channel like evolving? Because everything changes. I mean, I think that that's something that we all know in life is that
Yeah.
what we're doing today isn't necessarily what we're going to do 6 months from now. And it's impossible to predict where it's
Hmm.
going to go. But just as you cast your gaze for the future of the Tom Orange channel, what kinds of things do you think could happen or would you like to see happen?
Yeah. So one thing that I think I'm I'm already kind of testing the water, recording the clips for the Memory of Ice vlog, but
Mm-hmm.
I want to try that because I kind of want to move away from individual book reviews for books that I don't feel like there is enough for me to say. That
Okay.
hasn't happened a lot, but I know it will happen in the future. And while I have pretty much stuck to a review for everything I've read, I feel like sometimes I almost force myself because it's what I've always done, and so I
Sure.
think I would maybe like to move away and do more of the a weekly, bi-weekly kind of vlog where I still get to basically review the book,
Sure.
but do it in a little bit more of an organic way. So that is one thing I'd like to kind of try out. I don't know if I'll like it or not,
Yeah.
but that's one thing.
But I think that that's really good to think about because, like, as you mentioned, you've had the same lunch for 4 years. You can easily get into the creature of habit mode on BookTube for sure
Yep.
because it becomes sort of easy to do. Oh, I'm going to shoot a video today. I'm going to just do what I always do, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But,
Exactly.
but I think in order, I know for me at least, to keep it fresh and fun, it's coming up with not only new books to read, but just different ways of presenting how you are reading
Yeah.
it.
Absolutely. And I think I'll enjoy the aspect of showing my personality a little bit more. If you're doing a book review, some of that comes out, but I'm really just sitting over in that corner talking with
Yeah,
with the vlogs. I feel like I can be a little bit more personable, and we'll see how that goes.
I agree. Like I said, we've been going for about an hour and a half, you guys, which is about where we go. But I'm going to tell you what's coming up next week. But before we do that, couple of quick things, couple of quick reminders, and then we're going to do a segment that we always do. If you've liked this video, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button so more people see For Whom the Bell Tolls. If you're not subscribed to Tom's channel, the link is in the description. It's a great channel. If you've watched this video and you've made it this far, you can probably already tell, like I've known since I've watched this first video, his content is worth watching. And if you are watching in chat, I know your YouTube feed is full of BookTube. I know it is, and I know you don't have unlimited in the day to watch BookTube, but honestly, if you got to choose, take it, sacrifice a BellTube video if you need to, but tune into Tom's channel because it's really good stuff. And I think the more that you get to know him, the more you're going to be fired up to watch his videos. The Patreon for BellTube is super cheap right now. It's less than $2. So if you want to help out in that way, the Patreon link is in the description. Of course, I want to thank all of the patrons who are already part of that community. We'll talk about next week here in a second, but as we always end every episode on BellTube, we do a little segment we like to call around here One for the Road. And I usually do them except on For Whom the Bell Tolls. And Tom has been kind enough to agree to provide us with one today. So, Tom, fire it up. Let's do One for the Road.
Okay. Yeah, my one for the road is going to be very simple, and it is just be you. And it doesn't matter what that is, but don't let fear of others influence what you really feel like. I think that is one thing that has allowed me to be so multifaceted. That's why I can be a strong man. That's why I can be a reader. That's why I can be in tech. That's why I can read Twilight and also Malazan, is because I'm not afraid of what other people are going to say. And I promise people don't care as much as you think they do.
That is like one of the best ones. It's definitely better than any of the ones that I do. Um, that's awesome. Just be you
Be you.
without the fear of judgment, without the fear of, how you think you might look. You can't control that. You
Yep.
can only be you. That's an awesome one. And John is right. I believe Tom lives that, and she's totally right. And the proof is in the pudding. Everything that we've talked about here tonight, and everything that I've watched on your channel, is exactly that. Tom is being Tom, and Tom is a pretty awesome dude to watch. Thank you, Tom, for coming on tonight, and for everybody who's watching. And I'll go back to you, Tom, here in a second. But for those of you that wanted to know, I did a community poll, and our subscriber count at the time I did it was like 2,500 or something like that. And I did a community poll, and I asked you guys, do you want me to do a live stream and ask me anything, or do you want to wait? What do you want to do? And the voting came in pretty heavily in favor of me not ever doing a stream. No, I'm kidding. The voting came in favor of me doing an Ask Me Anything. So that's what we're going to do next week. Next week, we're going to come on at the same time we came on tonight. I am going to be my own guest, and you guys are going to interview me. And I think that that could be some fun, because the bell's going to toll for Bell himself next week. So get your questions ready. It's going to be a complete blast. Tom, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I hope you had as much fun as I did.
Absolutely.
Chat, you guys rock. You guys were going all over the place tonight. I love it. This is really becoming kind of a Wednesday night, community hangout where I have no idea if they're even listening to my questions or not, but chat's having a blast amongst themselves. And that's part of what we're here for. Tom, I hope you are willing to do a part 2 with me here, because we've got way more to talk about. I told you backstage, I told everybody backstage, I have 25 questions here. We got to 13 of them.
Oh, I'm always ready for part 2.
So we're going to have part 2 pretty soon. And again, I appreciate you guys all being here. Thank you guys who are watching on replay. These replays are getting like 1,000+ views. So I want to thank you guys for that. It's really helping the channel grow. And until next week, when we have an Ask Me Anything, I shall see you guys all very soon. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.